Hi, I'm Rabbi Johanna Hershenson. Welcome to Words of Torah. This week we are exploring the portion called Terumah. In it, the Israelites are given the instructions for building the tabernacle and all of its components, including the Ark of the Covenant, where the tablets of the Ten Commandments will be stored. This is where I'd like to look this week at the Ark of the Covenant. And the instruction is that it should be overlaid with pure gold, overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding round about. And then there's the cover, which is also plated in gold. And then make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them of hammered work at the 2 ends of the cover. So we've got this box of a certain number of cubits made of acacia wood, overlaid with gold, top on it, 2 cherubs that are facing each other at opposite ends on the top. Perhaps because I'm the daughter of a civil engineer, I have long been fascinated by suggestions that occasionally emerge in pop science magazines that the Ark of the Covenant was an ancient battery, or to be more accurate, a capacitor. A capacitor receives, stores, and transfers electricity. It's a lot like a battery, but a battery creates the electricity from an internal chemical reaction. Benjamin Franklin worked with a capacitor, a historic one known as the Leyden jar. And the Leyden jar is still used in school labs to teach electricity, right? But Benjamin Franklin used it to observe and discover how it actually worked, and thereby did discover how one might store energy, electricity, and then dispense electricity at will. What is a Leyden jar but a glass jar lined inside and out with tin foil, with a lid that's metal and sort of a cork in the middle, or sometimes a cement could be used, and a metal rod with a knob is inserted from the top through that cork, some kind of absorber, and there's a chain that reaches the bottom. Benjamin Franklin proved that the electrical charge was held in the glass between the foil in that Leyden jar and not in the tin foil or in the water that was often used in the jar. Professor Rogers of the 1933 Chicago Tribune article I flashed up wrote, the Ark of the Covenant was a much larger condenser capacitor. The divine instructions caused for the creation of 2 cherubim of pure gold to be placed on a gold slab or mercy seat atop the ark. These cherubim made up the positive pole of the Ark of Covenant. 1933 already, it's published this idea, right? And Professor Rogers explains in this article that slight movements of heat rising in smoke, such as burning sacrifices or incense, could distribute lesser charges of electricity that box, the Ark of the Covenant, stored. And that could, in fact, account for enough power to cause a electric shock enough for death. Let's remember the Haftarah portion in which poor Uzzah is traveling with the Ark of the Covenant into battle, and the cart starts to topple, and Uzzah reaches out to stop the Ark from falling, and he is zapped and dies on the spot with no explanation. Lesson learned, don't touch. Yeah, no moral lesson today, I'll give you that, but a reminder that perspective is everything. Whether on purpose or by accident, the ancient Ark of the Covenant, according to our narrative, transmitted enough electricity to fatally shock a person. It was known that one should never touch it. Now, this Ark of the Covenant not only travels with the ancient Israelites throughout their wandering in the wilderness, it accompanies them into war, into battle. Why? What if the ancient Israelites played with those electrical charges to scare their enemies in battle? What if the ancient priests and Levites played with electrical charges to intimidate folks into compliance with a taxation system that served those self-same priests and Levites? What if self-governance and international relations have always and will always attract self-serving power brokers and masses subject to the benevolence of those power brokers? Ecclesiastes said there is nothing new under the sun. I disagree. The values of the Enlightenment that birthed the modern liberal democracies of Europe and North America in the late 1700s and 1800s were indeed something new under the sun. When we as societies learn to hold dear to ideals, to universal truths, to shared values rather than clan and charisma, something new does emerge. Democratic values emerge, and democratic values, I contend, matter. I'm a Jew in Prineville, Oregon in 2021, not because of the strength of the Maccabees or the paratroopers of Israeli fame, but for the proto-democratic principles of ancient rabbis who liberated the Jewish people from sacrificial offerings, priests, and glorified janitors, and invited us to study Torah for ourselves, to gather in synagogues and schools, and be Jewish at home. But for the reformers who paved a middle ground between assimilation and isolation, a pathway suggesting one can acculturate by demonstrating Jewish values match the values of liberal democracy. A good Jew is a good person. A good Jew engages in the community, cares for the sick and the vulnerable, has empathy for the stranger. Ideals, values, practiced behaviors. While standing for something, serving some sense of purpose may not be new under the sun, democracy is. I am not indifferent to its chances of success. I vote for the rule of ideals over intimidation, the rule of values over vandalism to reason, the rule of practiced behaviors over whining and whataboutism. I vote for democracy, something new under the sun. See you next week.